The black hills shimmered in the golden haze of late afternoon, the scent of pine blending with the sharp tang of gun oil and ego. Atop a wind-cut plateau carved into the mountainside sprawled the Grand Crest shooting estate, its marble-inlaid gates gleaming like something out of a weapons heiress's fever dream. Helicopters circled lazily overhead, descending onto private pads with logos worth more than small countries. The estate's stone pillars bore plaques etched with the names of Olympians and war heroes, but this weekend wasn't about history. It was about legacy displayed in Swarovski scopes, carbon fiber stocks, and last names that opened congressional back doors. The estate's main event, the Valkyrie Invitational, gathered the kind of women who could end wars or fund them. Daughters of senators, granddaughters of four-star generals, heiresses to defense empires, and Silicon Valley royalty with crypto-built fortunes. Their laughter rang like crystal against the backdrop of the estate's glass and steel pavilion, where 15.0 rifles rested in velvet-lined cases and biometric scanners guarded the ammo vaults. Every piece of gear gleamed under 100.0 floodlights, boots polished, zippers matte black, gloves engineered for zero slip and maximum intimidation. Then, like static in a symphony, came Alara Quinn. She walked alone, boots wrapped in old duct tape, the rubber soles whispering against imported stone tiles that were never meant to carry footsteps like hers. Her olive jacket sagged with wear, the elbows softened from real use, not engineered distress. A battered ammo box hung from one shoulder, the metal edges dulled by time and travel. No one called her name. No one welcomed her. She didn't expect them to. The first security guard glanced up, brow cocking with a condescending tilt. "Maintenance check-in is out back," he muttered, not even pretending to hide his disdain. A second waved her along with two fingers, eyes not leaving the clipboard. "Observers don't use the guest lanes. There's a grassy patch near the East Hill. Try not to block the camera crews." A trio of young women paused mid-latte, their designer gloves lifted just so, their eyes narrowing with delighted malice. One leaned into the other, whispering loud enough for Alara to hear, "Did someone lose their farm girl?" The laughter rippled like champagne foam. Her name never appeared on the digital registry screen. When she presented her printed confirmation creased but legibly, a junior event coordinator gave a slow, pitying blink before sneering. "Oh, you must be on the wait list for civilian observers. We don't usually print those." She didn't argue. She didn't flinch. She just nodded, accepted the insult like dust on her sleeve, and kept walking. What they didn't know, what not a single soul in that glittering arsenal of privilege could guess, was that she wasn't there to network. She hadn't come for press coverage, sponsor deals, or the photo wall lined with gold leaf logos. She came for the steel. Beyond the pampered warm-up lanes, past the catered tents and the promotional booths handing out biometric gloves, loomed a target so far and so narrow it looked like a trick of the light. The 1-0-meter steel plate. It had been set there as a challenge, a taunt. In 10 years, no woman had ever hit it clean, not once. Alara stared at it for a long, quiet moment. Then she set her ammo box down and waited. The sun dipped lower over Grand Crest, casting long, merciless shadows across the marble pathways. The laughter had only grown sharper, more confident now that the woman in the olive jacket had been spotted hovering near the elite warm-up lanes. One by one, manicured fingers pointed. Murmurs rippled like poison in a pristine stream. She was an eyesore to their curated aesthetic, an error on a day built for perfection. A volunteer with a lanyard stepped in front of her and held out a palm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. These lanes are for competitors only." He didn't check her pass, didn't ask, just assumed. Alara's reply was nothing, just a blink, a nod, and a retreat, not in surrender, in calculation. She walked past a gear vendor who immediately thrust a brochure into her hands with a rehearsed smile. "We have a great grant program for first-timers maybe next year, huh?" He winked. Alara didn't answer. She folded the pamphlet in half and slid it into her jacket. An influencer, all extensions and veneers, tilted her phone discreetly and filmed Alara's back. The caption went live moments later. Found the mascot. Range fashion fail. The comments exploded instantly. Where'd she get that coat? Goodwill Combat Division. Someone tell Farm Sniper to stick to hay bales. Mudboot is lost again. Their Gucci goggles fogged with laughter. The jokes came easily when the target didn't shoot back. But Alara wasn't flinching. She was watching. Every twitch of a trigger finger, every stance, every error disguised as flourish, she absorbed it all. She studied the wind flags, the way shadows lengthened on the range at this hour. She took note of the pressure drops, even the way the earth trembled slightly when the luxury shuttle buses pulled in. Her fingers brushed the worn cloth of her jacket, and for the first time that day, she smiled. Just barely. Then a voice cracked through the noise. Ilara Queen. Her name, spoken through the estate's gold-trimmed intercom, cut the air like a scalpel. Last minute entry, Slot 72, 0 Meter Challenge. The reaction was instant. Heads turned. The influencer lowered her phone, blinking in confusion. Someone whispered, "Who?" A woman near the scoreboard scoffed. "What a waste of a slot." Another snickered, "She'll miss the mountain." But in the shadows behind the operations tent, an old man watched her step forward. He wore faded coveralls, a rag tucked into his belt, and the kind of silence only earned through loss. His name was Harold, a retired groundskeeper. He handed her an old bolt-action rifle with a cracked walnut stock and a scope older than most of the women on the line. She took it in both hands, reverent. Familiar. "You sure about this, Alara?" Harold asked, his voice soft, cracking under memory. She nodded once. Yeah. No one around them recognized her. Not the influencers, not the range officials, not even the coaches whose medals hung in the Grand Crest hallway. No one remembered the girl who once split a coin at 800 meters, or the name that had briefly flashed across military shooting competitions like a supernova before she walked away from it all. 8 years gone, erased. Until now. The wind stilled, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath. Ilara walked with calm, deliberate steps toward the farthest shooting lane, where the 1-0 meter mark blinked faintly in the distance, a strip of steel no bigger than a paperback. Bolted into the hillside beyond the pines, her boots left quiet prints in the sand. No guards stopped her this time. No volunteers dared lift a hand. The intercom had spoken. She had a slot. Around her, murmurs buzzed like static. The crowd reassembled, elbow to elbow behind the roped barrier, champagne flutes forgotten in trembling hands. Some laughed still, but the laughter had thinned, the edges brittle. "She's going to miss the entire hill," a senator's daughter said too loudly. A man with a clipboard muttered, "They'll have to repaint the steel after this embarrassment." On the betting app connected to the estate's network, odds on her hitting even one target dropped to 400-1. Alara lowered herself to the mat. Her body moved like memory, not motion. No wasted effort. Just silence. She unfolded the bipod, adjusted the scope with careful fingers. The rifle, older than most of the spectators, groaned softly as she shifted its weight. She pressed her cheek against the worn leather pad. The world narrowed, wind, breath, heartbeat. Her eyes didn't blink. The crowd was restless. Influencers whispered into ring-lit phones. A military heiress leaned toward her friend and whispered, "Does she even know which end to look through?" Then, crack. A single shot echoed across the valley. Clang. The steel rang like a bell. Center hit, dead on. The crowd stuttered, unsure if it was luck or illusion. Then another shot. Clang. Another bullseye. The digital scoreboard hesitated, flickered, then registered 2 hits in blinking yellow. By the third shot, the laughter had vanished. Clang. A fourth. Clang. Gasps rippled now. No one laughed. The range had gone quiet, like a church mid-prayer. Fifth shot. Clang. Then sixth. Clang. The record, just tied. But Ilara didn't pause. Her breath never broke rhythm. Seventh shot. Clang. Eighth. Clang. Ninth. Clang. The scoreboard lit up like a warning flare. Red bars, bold text, and a single line of blinking letters. World record. Neo Neo. Phones were trembling now. Faces pale. Coaches leaned forward, eyes wide. A woman in a custom camo blazer clutched her branded visor like it might anchor her to reality. The 10th round slid home. The rifle didn't tremble. Elara didn't blink. She pulled the trigger. Clang. Bullseye. 10 out of 10. The digital board exploded in red and gold. World record, Schiss first in history. Silence. Not one voice rose. Not one hand moved. Even the breeze seemed stunned. Then the elite shooting coach, a 3-time Olympic medalist, stepped forward from the viewing gallery. His mouth hung slightly open. "That's impossible," he said, voice barely a breath. And still, Ilara remained silent. The live stream's comment section exploded. Who is she? Is this real? Legend. Within seconds, the clip hit 100,000 shares. Sponsors scrambled. Reporters shouted. But Ilara simply laid the rifle down, brushed a bit of dust from her sleeve, and stood. She didn't raise her arms, didn't smile. She just walked away, leaving a stunned valley behind her, a melted record board in her wake, and a mountain of silence louder than any applause. The moment the 10th bullet struck, everything moved in slow motion. Reporters dropped their coffee and sprinted. Organizers scrambled like ants under a floodlight, tripping over their headsets as they lunged toward the woman who had just rewritten history with a borrowed rifle. Microphones popped on. Drones adjusted their trajectory mid-air. The scoreboard kept blinking in disbelief. 10 out of 10. Perfect. Untouchable. And Ilara? She simply exhaled. Her breath clouded slightly in the mountain air as she lowered the rifle with care, like a sacred object, and laid it gently on the bench. She didn't look at the cameras, didn't turn to the crowd. Her fingers brushed a thread loose from the cuff of her old olive jacket, then slipped into her pocket as she turned from the firing line and walked slow, steady toward the gate. She wasn't halfway there when the first voice shouted, "Ma'am, wait." A woman in a tight ponytail and a branded blazer with a global firearms logo barreled toward her, heels clicking like gunfire. "Who trained you?" she demanded, breathless. "We have to talk. This is world class, Olympic, tier. Who taught you to shoot like that?" Ilara gave her a sidelong glance. "No one recent," she said flatly, then kept walking. Another voice, higher pitched and cracking with recognition, gasped. "Wait, Ilara Quinn? You're the Ilara Quinn? The army prodigyth girl who beat the simulation drills blindfolded? You disappeared. You dropped off the grid. What happened to you?" But Ilara didn't answer. Her silence spoke louder than their questions. And still, the crowd behind her grew. Spectators now leaned over velvet ropes, shouting her name like it was suddenly currency. Coaches who had ignored her earlier elbowed forward, some stammering apologies, others offering business cards. And then the wind shifted. Overhead, the chopping thrum of rotor blades thickened the air. A black helicopter, sleek and military-grade, descended onto the estate's private helipad, whipping the crowd's carefully sprayed hair into chaos. The Grand Crest flags strained on their poles. The gates creaked open automatically as the side door slid back and boots hit the ground. Commander Nathaniel Brooks stepped onto the range. Decorated with distinction across 3 continents, head of the U.S. Long Range Tactical Command, the man's presence sucked the breath from the crowd. The elite recognized him instantly. Some straightened their coats, others lowered their voices. He moved without hesitation, walking past stunned announcers and trembling officials until he stood before Ilara. He didn't ask if she was okay, He didn't mention the record. He simply wrapped an arm around her shoulder, kissed her forehead gently, and turned to the growing throng. "That's my wife," he said, his voice sharp as a snapped trigger. "And the greatest natural marksman this country's ever seen." Gasps rippled like gunfire down the line. The influencers dropped their phones. The heiresses who mocked her shrank into their expensive gear. Those who had laughed now stood frozen, holding back words that could never be taken back. Apologies began to fall like rain, quiet, stammered, desperate. Ilara took none of them. Instead, she walked calmly toward the edge of the range, where the earth met the forest, and the 10-meter plate glinted in the golden light. She paused, looking out at it one last time. No crowd, no cameras, just steel and pine. She whispered to the wind, "I wasn't aiming for your approval," and turned away. Behind her, the livestream's caption updated one final time. "She came with nothing and left with history."